So MACtion begins tomorrow night for the Bowling Green Falcons as we welcome in Patrick Andrus from the Toledo Blade. He covers BG on a daily basis. Patrick, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Let's talk a little bit about Wednesday night as Western Michigan comes into town. Scott Loeffler, very complimentary of the Broncos, thinks they remind him quite a bit of the Miami Redhawks, who both Western Michigan and Bowling Green beat this season.
Yeah, I think that's a key comparison. It shows a lot of what Western Michigan is about. They're a team that likes to run the football a lot. They really haven't found sustained success in the passing game this year. They have found some on the ground. They also have a strong defensive identity. They've got one of the best pass rushers in the league in a command moment. But I think this is a team that poses a challenge for Bowling Green. But I think this is a very winnable football game, and I think the Falcons are obviously very important.
Speaking of winnable football games, Bowling Green 2 wins away from becoming bowl eligible. They have 4 games remaining. Is this a must-win game, or can they afford to lose this game and maybe pick up that second win, that first and second win elsewhere?
Well, I think this is a must-win game given who they have left on the schedule. Kent State has been down this year, but this is still a team with a strong offensive pedigree. This is a team that can strike at any time. We was like that too at the end of the season with Curtis Fork, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And we know the story on Toledo, the most talented team in the conference. They've underachieved a little bit this year, but they rebounded against Eastern Michigan. So Bowling Green need to. The way I've been phrasing it all along is they need to find 2 wins. They've thrived in close games at points this year. That's the kind of approach they need to take. They just need to kind of scrape out their 2 wins, and they can get to a bowl game. If they do it early, if they do it against Western and Kent State, they can probably aspire to bigger things. They'll have a chance right away. If they beat Western this week and Buffalo loses to OU, they're right there. They're right in the tie for first place in the division.
Beginning of MACtion for BG, as we talked last week, they had last week off, and I think we're in agreement that came at a pretty good time for the Falcons as they're able to regroup and get ready for the stretch of football games that Scott Loeffler says is the toughest stretch of games for them.
Oh, they really needed it. They're banged up. We've seen a lot of guys make time at points this year. Matt McDonald, Christian Sims, Jamal Johnson, Yvonne Ferguson, Austin Osborne. They're all guys that have varying degrees of time due to various injuries. And some of those guys they'll be able to get back in November. And I think that they really approach the bye week differently than they have in past years because they're in such good position. They really were able to take a deep breath, kind of focus on the recovery. And I think it was interesting that Loeffler made available in advance of the Western Michigan game 2 veterans in Anthony Hawkins and Christian Sims, guys who've been around the block, guys who know the value of the bye week. And I think that their sort of approach to recovery, it goes hand in hand with their approach to the season. They approach every week like a championship week. They also approach the bye week like a championship week. I think that's a mentality that's been missing for BG for some years now.
Away from the football field, Bowling Green last week hiring a new athletic director, Derek Vandermeer, who played football at Central Michigan. In fact, was an administrator at Central Michigan, and his time at CMU did overlap with Scott Loeffler's time when Loeffler was an assistant up with the Chips. As we move forward, I think we're in agreement that Scott Loeffler has done enough to at least turn down the temperature on his seat. I don't think it's a hot seat anymore. The new AD, does that give a little more security for Scott Loeffler going forward?
I think so. I think there's a lot of optimism in that building all around Bowling. That it's kind of a rising tide lifting all boats. Or the new AD has kind of turned down the heat on everybody, but particularly Loeffler has done a nice job this year, getting Bowling Green back to 500, helping them overcome a 7 overtime loss to Kentucky, and they really stubbed their toe against Buffalo, and they were able to shrug it off. As Loeffler has said, past Bowling Green teams, they were young enough that they would kind of get overwhelmed by the moment, by the churn of the season. And I think, like you said, Loeffler and Vandermeer, they know each other from their Central Michigan days. Loeffler talked about in advance of the Western Michigan game. He expressed a lot of optimism about the working relationship they could develop. Players seemed interested too. I asked both Christian and Anthony about what they thought of the hire, and they downplayed, as football players tend to do. They downplayed their knowledge of the situation, but both of them seem to express optimism that he'll push all the right buttons. For Bowling Green, it's not a matter of passion. we know firsthand these are some of the most passionate Group of Five fans anywhere. It's always been a matter of spending, a matter of resources, and I think if Bowling Green's going to make the investments, I think they can make. I think Leffler can continue to be successful after this year. I think it's a definite possibility.
What is your biggest concern for the Falcons as they take on the Broncos Wednesday night?
They need their offensive line to be razor sharp because they definitely took a step back against Central Michigan. Matt McDonald, he was complimentary of his offensive line afterward, but they did allow him to be sacked 6 times. I think that's definitely a little bit of a cause for concern. Western Michigan has a solid front seven. They're going to need the veterans to step up. We're going to need to see a big game from Jakari Robinson, from Jalen Grant. Those are two guys who had their best games of the season against Miami. For all the comparisons Leffler players have made too between Western Michigan and Miami, if they really want to key in on Western Michigan and Miami, they need to protect McDonald because he definitely has the receivers. We saw Odin Hilaire's best game of the season against Central Michigan. We saw a great game from Tyrone Bowden. So I think if McDonald has time, he'll be able to find his person. I think Bowling Green's in pretty good shape in this one. Uh, they they are in a pretty rare position for them in recent years, and that this is a game they probably should win in November, meaningful game that they are probably the favorite in. So I think that if they win this, it'll be a big confidence boost to them, and that's all going to come down to their ability to protect McDonald.
All right, thank you very much, Patrick Andrews from the Toledo Blade. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Mark.